this could really change the medical community for the better for how we're taking care of our athletes. So shout out UCSD for doing that.
Absolutely, yeah. So I'm Tyler Wilps. I'm a resident at orthopedic resident at UCSD, and basically this study that we're conducting is a pitching study to study how pitchers fatigue throughout a pitching bout and then how they recover afterwards.
And he invites Eric and I to a research study to measure the width of our UCL and the gap as we throw. Very interesting idea. He calls me up, tells me the story. Basically, we're going to use a sonogram to live read the UCL in between different stresses. And it starts off with pre-throw, then it goes to long toss, then we measure, then we go to an inning, 20 pitches as hard as we can.
So we had John and Eric throw 60 pitches in 3 innings. We kind of measured local fatigue and systemic fatigue both before and after pitching. That includes some strength measurements, range of motion, some grip strength, and then some local fatigue measurements at the flexor forearm muscles, including oxygenation, stiffness, and then the ultrasound as well. With the ultrasound, we're looking specifically at joint space as one of the parameters. And it's as you pitch, it's known that kind of opens up, and we did see that on with John and Eric as well. So that's one of the couple local fatigue measurements that we're looking at. And then moving forward, we hope to implement this into an in-game scenario.
The fact that you could actually do this in the dugout, and these tests took roughly 2 minutes. So we had I'm really impressed with how far technology has come, especially when you could just Bluetooth some of these devices to your phone and capture the information. Go.
Oh, keep going. We're in the middle.
That's awesome. All right,
Appreciate you.
thank you so much.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thanks, man. I was really excited because we got to play around with a bunch of new tools. There were some awesome new things that happened with the phone where we get to Bluetooth some grip strength. We got to do some testing as far as mobility, reaching, and then we also got to test tightness density of the muscle or something like that. But basically, they had a device that when you put it on the arm, it would measure how tight the arm was.
Okay, thank you. That was a blast. Eric and I love going and throwing, especially with help of science. Could you just summarize everything we did today?
Yeah. So today we took some local fatigue measurements at the arm and some systemic fatigue measurements of your whole body, and we asked you to throw 3 innings for 20 pitches, and we kind of want to track how those things change throughout the pitching bout and then a day and 2 days after. And really the goal is to kind of develop a methodology to track pitchers' arms and prevent UCL injury, and ultimately understand how they fatigue, get injured, and recover.
Yeah. So how are you measuring the differences?
Yeah. So locally, we're measuring forearm musculature. We're measuring stiffness. We're measuring oxygen content. We're also using the ultrasound to look directly at the elbow joint. In addition, we're just using some what they're called Likert scales, like a 0 to 10, just to ask your fatigue, both your arm and then pain at the shoulder and elbow. Single leg balance tells us a little bit about your systemic fatigue. And those are the main measurements. We also do strength and range of motion before and after to see how those change.
And then the driveline pulse, what information were you grabbing from that?
Yeah, so from the pulse, the main things we're looking at are torque at the joint. It's basically a proxy for work, how much work you're putting out, and we'll kind of compare and contrast that with your pitch speed, pitch spin rate as well.
Right. It was very interesting because after a long toss, my arm opened up the most, and then after that, when I threw the first inning, the distance on the gap of my arm got smaller. So long toss was actually more stressful, but what I felt was actually the best post long toss. I think Alan Yeager talks about throwing upwards and how that can affect the shoulder capsule and how much external rotation that you can get with that. And I definitely agree with what he was saying there, and that's what I was experiencing.
Connection of both arms moving together is one of the key to keeping the ball in line. So right when I reach out the positive angle that I create, I'm really going to try to pull through on the glove side and launch the arm forward to keep the chest centered. Really helps for a good ball flight on your long toss. You feel a nice, really comfortable deep layback.
This is wild. I'm looking inside my elbow.
No,
Is that it right there?
There it is.
That's it right there,
That's
right?
strip.
Yeah.
That bump is your elbow, bump of your elbow.
Uh-huh.
And that space is your joint space. I'll show you. Go ahead and
Good clean distance there.
Actually looks good, yeah.
That's hilarious.
Surprised you're
It's surgically done, so
Dude,
I would hope so.
We're completely doing. No, that's the
Oh,
titanium.
you had a reconstruction?
No. I have an electron fracture,
Oh, yeah.
and I have 2 titanium screws in the ulna.
Put that thing in my shoulder, see what you see.
So that elbow's not going nowhere. What'd you tell it? 2 titaniums? Made of
That elbow's
vibranium?
not going nowhere. We don't have any fun if you can't tell. I'm gonna be shouting this from the mountaintops. 37
Go ahead.
to 90 miles an hour. UCL's
Just get one
fine.
more.
Shut up and throw.
Go ahead.
Okay, so I just got back from UCSD doing this sports research study with Eric, and I'm just really blown away at like what we learned and how the experience went. It's so important for the health and the community of baseball. We have people that are trying to push the envelope to get like instant feedback on ligaments, which is just completely different than what the status is right now. If you think about it, if you have a ligament issue right now, you go to an MRI and that's something that has to be scheduled. With this like live sonogram, they were actually able to look and measure the space of my elbow within seconds of me getting done throwing. That is huge to actually know what's happening. Think about it. If you have an injury, it's normally days, if not weeks away from the injury, and you don't necessarily get to see exactly what's going on. So,
You know, the utility in this is if we can kind of establish this 5-minute testing protocol that could potentially be used to track pitchers both in a game and in a recovery period, then we can understand, you know, how a pitcher does fatigue and when they are back to their baseline and ready to pitch, or, you know, if something's happening that could be catastrophic in the other direction leading to injuries. So.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate it. Thank you so much.
if you haven't seen our stuff on here before, please like and subscribe. Let everybody know if you enjoyed this content.